Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by uppercutchops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all, those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had. Probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at uppercutchops.com. That's uppercutchops.com. Or give them a call and find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for uppercutchops.com. All right, a big welcome in, everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. Everybody on radio, thanks for joining us. Everybody on TV and select markets on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, Wild Charter, CBS, and NBC, plus independent affiliates from coast to coast, as well as hotel television, all in select markets. That would be the television providers and hotel TV. And everybody streaming on Pick Your Favorite Streamer as well. And even everybody on Chicago Food Favorites. Check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook, folks. You'll get a chance to join others and talk about your friends. Or I guess you can talk about your friends if you really want to. Anyway, you can talk about your favorite foods and your favorite restaurants, your favorite recipes. Make some friends. Don't talk about them and have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right. And by the way, our friends over at Vacation Buddies are giving away a couple of nights in Las Vegas, right here in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or how about Scottsdale, Arizona? How about that? Wow. That's right. Scottsdale, Arizona, and actually there's plenty of other locations, but I'm going to give these to you right now. If you can tell me the answer to this very simple trivia question, if so, call the number I give you right afterwards and have your chance to pick up a couple of nights right here in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or in Scottsdale, Arizona. If you don't know where that is essentially the greater Phoenix market. Boy, that's good stuff. Which of these three cities is home to the tallest building in America? Is it A, New York, B, Chicago, C, Los Angeles? If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, or better yet, how about this one? You can call locally, 702, I'm going to give you an inside number here, 702-603-1414, 702-603-1414. Now, Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station, but they want to give you a couple of nights right here in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or Scottsdale, Arizona. If you know the answer, call 702-603-1414 right now and tell them the circus sent you. All right. Now, how many of us go to professional sports games, first of all? Probably a very, very large amount of us either have or have gone, or we do go, or we have season tickets, stuff like that. And we say, there's a lot of teams, football, baseball, basketball, hockey. Let's just focus on the four major food groups of professional sports. Never mind soccer and all the other things. All right. So let's just, and one of my favorites is the power slap. I love the power slap. That's a whole nother discussion. In fact, we had a discussion on that. I think it was a couple days ago. It might even be yesterday. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter. Check it out. Power slap on your favorite search engine. We use one that rhymes with a noodle, but we don't say their name because why? What they haven't done is show me the money! So guess what? I'm going to say it's the one that rhymes with noodle. All right. So anyway, so we go to these games and we say, all right, well, I'm from this city and I'm going to root for my home team. Okay. And then you say, well, wait a minute. A lot of these teams, they need money. And I'll get to the money part of it in just a minute, because the thing that I'm very curious of, and actually, I already have a lot of knowledge on this, and I'm sure you do too, but I want you to think about the idea that, let's just say you're in New York. In New York City, that is, not in Buffalo. And you say, we've got a couple of baseball teams, right? One plays in the Bronx, one doesn't. We have another situation in basketball. One plays at Madison Square Garden, the other one doesn't. They play in Brooklyn. And they got a couple of hockey teams. One plays at Madison Square Garden, the other one plays on the island up in Long Island, hence the Islanders, which makes a little bit of sense. And then we got a couple of football teams in the New York City area, but guess what? They don't play in New York. No, they actually play in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Imagine that. So, in good conscience, look, this, to me, it's just a real head scratcher. If you look at these squads, and let's just do a real quick search. We'll go New York Football Giants. All right, so the New York Football Giants. And we're going to take a little bit of a dive into this because we can. And I find this interesting, just like the namesake. And we think back to the Giants. And look, these guys, boy, they've been around for a minute. We're talking since 1925. They're 100 years old. That's right, 100 years old. And you say, well, all right, let's look at the history. Now, this isn't a history lesson, but we'll go back to August 1st of 1925. And you've got Timothy Mara and Will Gibson were granted the franchise by the National Football League for their newly organized team in New York City, the New York Football Giants. That's right. And the cost was about $2,500. Right? Now, the Giants played their first game as an exhibition against All New Britain, which was not an NFL team. All New Britain in New Britain, Connecticut. Now, how do you get Connecticut out of Connecticut? That's another discussion for another time. Nonetheless, that was done on October 4th of 1925. Yes, and they won the game 26-0 in front of a crowd of 10,000. We're talking back in 1925. That's a lot of people. So you think of the New York Giants' first NFL game was a week later, on October 11th of 1925. And that was at the Cycledrome in Providence, Rhode Island. That's right. And they lost 14-0 to the Providence Steamrollers. What a great name, the Providence Steamrollers. Now, I know nothing about them, except for the fact that that was their inaugural season as well in the National Football League. And they did finish with a record of 6-5-1 against NFL teams. Yet they finished 10th in the league. How about that? The Providence Steamrollers. I want a jersey from the Providence Steamrollers. Now, if we look back at the New York Football Giants, you say, all right, well, yeah, they won here, they won there, whatever. Okay, so look, they had some winning history, and they played kind of all over the place. You think of the ownership. Now, Tim Mara owned the team for essentially 32 years, 34 years. And then Jack and Wellington Mara for about 6 years. And Wellington and Tim Mara again from 1965 to 1991. Then Wellington Mara and Preston Robert Tisch. Right? We can't get to him right now, Mr. Tisch, because there's another discussion. From 1991 to 2005, and John Mara and Steve Tisch from 2005 to present day. Why is this significant? Well, we think about where they played. And honestly, look, you can go through the history and you say, all right, well, they have this, they played here, they played there. But what I'm after, the grand scheme of things here, you say, well, all right, well, Giants Stadium was the stadium located in East Rutherford, New Jersey, in the Meadowlands, right? Not in New York City, in the Meadowlands. And so it was open from 1976 to 2010, primarily hosted, of course, those games, et cetera, et cetera. And so also the home of the two football teams, as I mentioned before. But my question is, when you think about the Giants, and you think about New York, why is it and how is it that Well, the New York Football Giants, we'll go back to the very beginning. Well, if they didn't play in New York, how were they actually New York? Why is that? How is that? Well, I mean, there's 1,000 answers to that. And you're not really sure which answer is the best answer. But we think of the ownership, we think of the fan base, and everything that comes with it. And you think back from early 1960s, right? So the Giants really had firmly established themselves as essentially one of the league's biggest attractions. Certainly the Bears and Green Bay were obviously the two real attractions in the National Football League back in the day. And you think of all the money that was spent from this stadium and that stadium and everything that comes with it. And you ask yourself, how come they couldn't just make the Giants a New York team? Why did they have to make them a New Jersey team? Is it that expensive to build a home in New York for the New York Football Giants? And let's face it, even the New York Jets. And that's what I'm wondering. And so how come we don't have that? Well, we don't have that, I guess, for a myriad of reasons. And if you look at it, honestly, without belaboring this through the commercial break, we always come right back down to what? We come back to tax dollars and this kind of thing. Who's going to pay for the stadium? So when we come back from break, we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into that and some of the other cities that actually have teams that don't play in their home stadiums or even the state in which they represent. Back here in a few on the Sports Circus. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP-TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com. Check them out, folks. All righty, welcome back to everybody listening in on the radio with us. In fact, big hello to our friends over in Atlanta. Thanks for waking up with us, listening in on WDJY 99.1 FM. Right down the road, 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, over through Montgomery, Alabama to Columbus, Georgia. Listening in on WAUD right there out of Auburn, War Eagle. And, of course, that's home of the Atlanta Braves. Up and down the Midwest, out to the West Coast, those driving between sunny Southern California and right here in Las Vegas, listening in on Highway Country Radio, 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM. That's home of the Vegas Golden Knights, the Raiders, and the Sports Circus at 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. Up and down the West Coast, out to our friends in Honolulu, CBS Sports, 1500 KHKA. That's home of the 49ers, the Yankees, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. And, of course, nice afternoon drive. Thanks for listening in with us there. Plus, everybody watching Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, Wild Charter, CBS, Channel 47 over in the greater Fresno market, as well as KSEE, and that's over in Fresno, NBC Channel 20, what is that, Channel 25, if I'm not mistaken, Channel 25, Channel 27. You know what? We're going to get it right now. You know why? Because we can. As a matter of fact, it's Channel 24, KSEE, NBC, over in the Central Valley in California, covering Fresno, Modesto, and all points in between and beyond, I suppose. All right, plus everybody watching on Chicago Food Favorites. Thanks for joining us there. And that is, of course, on Facebook, a fun group talking about your favorite foods, your favorite restaurants, your favorite recipes. Make some friends, have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites. Join that group, folks. A lot of fun. Several thousand members on that group as well. I grew it from 0 to where it is today, and it just keeps on getting bigger, if you know what I mean. All right. And, oh, by the way, if you have a chance to grab your telephone and make a phone call, you can get yourself a couple of nights right here in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or in Scottsdale, Arizona by answering a very simple trivia question, a couple of nights. So it's the old 3-day, 2-night situation. And guess what? You even have a chance to possibly make that bigger, maybe 4 days, 3 nights, or beyond. You never know. And all it is, simple trivia question, answer the question, call the number I give you. That's that, super simple. Which city out of these 3 is home to America's tallest building? Is it A, New York, B, Chicago, C, Los Angeles? If you know the answer, call 702-603-1414, 702-603-1414, 702-603-1414. Now, Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with the station, but they want to give you a couple of nights right here in Vegas, Orlando, or Scottsdale. And if you know the answer to that simple trivia question, call 702-603-1414. Call now. All right. Now, the first segment dealt with, for example, I did mention the New York Football Giants. Why don't they play along with the New York Jets? Why don't they play in the city of New York? Well, hell, or even the state of New York, if that's the case. However, there's a real simple question. The reality is the New York Giants play at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, just like the New York Jets, because of a lack of affordable large-scale land in New York City and a desire for their own modern stadium. Now, they moved in 1976 to the Meadowlands, which offered more space and better accessibility than, of course, the available locations. So really, land and cost are kind of the big drivers here. The Meadowlands in New Jersey offers a whole bunch of space for a stadium and parking, which certainly wasn't available and or astronomically expensive, of course, within the 5 boroughs of New York.
Show me the money!
Yeah, and then they'll show you a stadium. That's kind of what they said. And so you say, well, following their time at Yankee Stadium, because that's where the Giants actually played previously, they did have the need or the desire for a permanent dedicated home. And guess what? New Jersey stepped in and said, we could do that. And then you look at MetLife Stadium itself. I mean, look, this was built in, 2010, and it was designed as a joint venture with the Jets to provide one of those top-line, top-shelf facilities. And so it is probably more accessible. And believe me, I'm going somewhere with this, folks. Think about the idea of, despite it being in a different state, the stadium is part of the New York metro area, and so it's accessible for all fans. And so although there have been legal challenges regarding their New York branding, look, the team remains in New Jersey due to the high cost of rebuilding in the city. And that is not really a hard situation to understand. I mean, look, the Giants and Jets are just a couple of teams that are in that situation. Now, look at this. So you think about something as simple, even the Dallas Cowboys. Well, they don't play in Dallas, they play in Arlington. Yet they are the Dallas Cowboys. So technically they're playing in suburban Dallas. Look at the 49ers. They don't play in San Francisco anymore. They're not at Candlestick Park. No, they're way down the peninsula in Santa Clara. That's quite a haul if you know the area. That is not a hop, skip, and a jump away. And even the New England Patriots, look, they play in Foxborough, Mass. So you say, well, all right, yeah, that's it is in New England, right? Let's look at it that way. But the reality is, if you say, well, they used to be the Boston Patriots once upon a time, right? In case you didn't know, they were the Boston Patriots. And you say, okay, well, let's think about the idea of the Boston Patriots. All right, we're going to open it up in the maps, and you could follow along as well. And we're using one of our favorite mapping softwares. You could do this right there with me, and you could find out exactly how far it is. So let's get directions from Foxborough to Boston. Let's just see what the distance is. All right, so Boston shows, well, here's the answer right here. All right, it's just pulling up, and it is, well, shoot, it's about 30 miles, 29.1 mile. Now, of course, when you think about traffic, as you head southwest out of Boston down Interstate 93 to Interstate 95, I mean, it is a very congested situation. And so you say, well, all right, I understand that, but let's go to Logan Airport. All right, so we go to Logan Airport. That's in East Boston. The distance is 31.9 miles. So imagine how long it takes to get from Logan Airport, where a lot of the teams will fly into, unless they fly to Providence, which is just a little bit, well, it's probably, I'm going to argue it's about the same distance. Maybe the teams do fly into Providence. That could make a little bit more sense. So let's do this. Let's go to Providence, and let's see what the distance is. All right, so Providence, and trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. Providence Airports, all right. Providence International Airport, there it is. All right, that's TF Green International. And the distance is 36 minutes or 30 miles. So actually, it's about 1 mile closer than flying to Boston. My best guess is the teams that play the New England Patriots will fly in and out of Providence because it makes a hell of a lot more sense with a hell of a lot less traffic. That's how I see it. Why are we talking about this? Well, listen, not every professional team plays in their city, right? Like I was saying, Dallas doesn't. New England, well, New England is not a city per se, right? And then you go to the Washington Commanders. They actually play in Landover, Maryland. So shouldn't they be the Maryland Commanders, right? Now, the Buffalo Bills are the only football team, professional football team, that plays in the state of New York. Yet they are the Buffalo Bills, not the New York Bills. So guess what? They play in Orchard Park, not within Buffalo's city limits, right? And then you look at the Chargers and the Rams. They don't play in Los Angeles. No, they play in Carson or Inglewood, California. See where we're going with this? The Arizona Cardinals, they have an interesting path, and there are reasons the Cardinals don't do what they do. They don't play. They used to be the Phoenix Cardinals, but they rebranded due to some bad luck, this, that, and the other. And financially, it was better for them to become the Arizona Cardinals. So we're going to give them a pass because they play in nearby Glendale, a suburban Phoenix. But they're not called the Phoenix Cardinals like the Dallas Cowboys, right? But now the Carolina Panthers, they represent both North and South Carolina, based in Charlotte. Minnesota plays in Minneapolis, but you technically have Minneapolis-St. Paul. So are they the Minneapolis Vikings? No. That's why the Minnesota Twins baseball team is the Twins for the Twin Cities. Now that one makes the most sense. And then you have the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? And then you have the Minnesota Wild. So what they've done is because there are two cities there, they don't even represent one or the other. And the Golden State Warriors, how about that? The Golden State Warriors, I'm going to get into this in a little bit deeper dive in the next segment. Look, they do play in San Francisco, yet they are not San Francisco. They're not Oakland. They are the Golden State, which is the tagline for California, just like Illinois is the land of Lincoln. Well, California is the Golden State. And right here in Nevada, we are in the Silver State. So do we have a Silver State Raiders football team? We do not. Lots more to come with this. Don't go anywhere. Back here on the Circus in a few.
She got up.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. That's 800-814-8628.
Are you or someone you love struggling with an addiction to drugs or alcohol and want to be set free from the chains of addiction? Then call Addiction Helpline America right now to get the help you need. From drug and alcohol addiction to dual diagnosis treatment, we provide a confidential helpline to help people like you get sober and live happy, substance-free lives.
Treatment helped me get my life back. I was so addicted, the only person I could focus on was myself and what I needed. I hit rock bottom and lost everything. Through treatment, I was able to overcome those demons and focus on my family again.
I used until I overdosed and almost died. That was the end of the road for me. After seeking treatment, I now have hope. I learned skills that help me deal with life on life's terms.
800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. That's 800-426-4994.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Investors, keep listening to learn how to get your free gold report. A currency crisis is upon us. The U.S. dollar has been the world's reserve currency for over 50 years, but that is changing. It's time to protect your retirement. Decades of reckless borrowing and spending have critically weakened the dollar. The U.S. has become the world's biggest debtor with over $35 trillion in debt. Plus, the dollar's become weaponized. Countries are dumping it. Investors who wait until it's too late could lose big. There is one safe haven: gold. Diversify your portfolio with a physical asset they can't take away. Call the Reagan Gold Group right now and ask for your free gold guide. Here's our number:
800-876-7041. 800-876-7041. 800-876-7041. That's 800-876-7041.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure to check out the sportscircus.com's upcoming schedule for our featured guests. Lots of great guests. There are thousands of shows that we've done. Football, baseball, basketball, hockey, golf, boxing, cricket. What else have we had? We've had, we've had roller derby. Oh, yeah, roller derby. We had the Sin City roller derby team out a long time ago, but that was a lot of fun. We've had bodybuilders and government officials and presidential candidates and just billionaire business people. You wouldn't believe it. And just enormous people on this show. We don't pay anybody to come on this show. We never have and we never will. That's one of the cool things about this show. Listen, it's a circus and we prove it every day. There is no format per se. Everything out there, look, it's live. I don't fix it in the mix. There's no need to do that. And it's not a podcast. We do a regular radio and TV show. We happen to store our recorded shows on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, iHeart, Stitcher, Deezer, plus a whole bunch of other of those platforms. But we are not a podcast. This is a regular FCC regulated show designed for linear television and terrestrial radio. That's what we do. And believe me, folks, it's a lot harder than it may sound or appear. All right. So back with the discussion on teams that don't play in their cities or states. And I mean, look, there's some funny dialogue out there. I was reading something on Reddit, and this really got me going. Some of this stuff really had me going. And so there was a chain on this, and I don't know what the chain is. It's just somewhere on Reddit. And it was regarding this very topic about teams playing in their cities and whatnot, or they should, or why some teams are called state names and others are called city names. And then some of the comments are good. I'm just going to read them out. One of them says, should fully double down and become the Texas Texans. The Texas Texans. I kind of like that one. And then some people say, well, not stupider than the Philadelphia Phillies. And there's a line of this. The Los Angeles Angels, or translates to the Angels. It's kind of funny. Change the Angels to the Angels to really mess with people. That's kind of funny. Actually change the Angels to the Angles. Yeah, that's really good stuff. Anyway, so lots of these. And I mean, look, even the Angels don't play in Los Angeles. They used to, then they moved to Anaheim. So, no, they do play in Anaheim and Orange County, not in Los Angeles. Another one of those that kind of go with this. And so, some of the things that kind of make me laugh, we just think like the Phillies. Look, the names, I don't know, 100 plus years, whatever, old. And look, people from Philly are not called Phillies. No, they say it's a city of brotherly love, but it seems like they hate everything. I mean, the Phillies are what? They're actually horses, right? I mean, the Pennsylvania Eagles. How about that one? Now, that would be good. How about the Steagles? I mean, people throw some pretty funny names out there, but this one is my favorite one yet. Now, you've got the Lightning, the Rays, and the Buccaneers. They all play in Tampa Bay. But the oddity of that is they actually play in the water because there's no city named Tampa Bay. No, I mean, they would be Tampa, the Tampa Rays, the Tampa Bucks, the Tampa Lightning. No, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Lightning and Rays, I mean, are they playing in the middle of the water? I mean, they have 3 sports teams. I can't really figure that one out, but think about the idea of Tampa Bay is not a city name, but Green Bay is a city name. And yes, they have their football team there, but Tampa's got 3 teams. Green Bay only has 1 team, and we know who those guys are. But the oddity is that the actual Bay itself has 3 teams. I mean, think about that one for a minute. That's right. Think about it. It's kind of humorous in the grand scheme of things. But really, the idea is, look, the Rays, where do they play? They play in St. Petersburg. They don't even play in Tampa. How about that? So in the grand scheme of things, you look at all these teams, whether they're in New York or in the Bay, in Tampa Bay or New England or from Boston to, because obviously New England is known as a Boston team, but they don't really identify with the balance of New England because they were originally the Boston Patriots. Right, not originally, but if you go back to the New England Patriots, let's do a look because we can. Now this is kind of fun. So let's go New England Patriots. All right, and so what we're going to do is we're going to take one of those trusted sources that is not a scholarly journal, but they have a lot of information. So let's look at Wikipedia. Now, of course, they have played in different places as well. And you look at the nicknames, the Pats, Grogan's Heroes, Evil Empire, all those. But the team history, they were the Boston Patriots from 1960 to 1970. And they played at the Boston University Field for 2 years, 60 to 62, Fenway Park from 63 to 68, Alumni Stadium in 1969, of course, a college football field for Boston College over in Chestnut Hill. And then they played in Harvard Stadium, which actually is in Boston. And then, of course, they played in Foxborough Stadium, right, which obviously is not in Boston. And then Gillette Stadium to this point. So you look at even those guys, you're like, well, why are we talking about this? Because, first of all, because we can. But secondly, they don't play in the city in which they represent either. So there are scores of these names. I mean, here's a conundrum. Think of Golden State Warriors, right? So look, they became the Golden State Warriors when they split home games between Oakland and San Diego in 1971 and 1972. They had been known as the San Francisco Warriors from 1962 to 1971. After moving from where? From Philadelphia. Yes, from Philadelphia, kind of like the unhappiest city in America as I see it, but they eventually settled in Oakland full time, played in the Oakland Oracle Arena or Coliseum, whatever the hell it was up there, until they moved to San Francisco. That was a whole nother discussion. I mean, look, when Carolina was being pitched as an expansion team, Richardson wanted to make the team, or make the market really, look bigger. So he included parts of South Carolina. And the state said, look, if you're going to include our residents, you can't just call it a North Carolina team. So they worked a deal to name the team Carolina. That's right. And as a matter of fact, the Panthers did play their first season of home games in South Carolina at the Clemson Stadium. Now, also, the Panthers logo was supposedly designed to mimic the shape of the states of South and North Carolina. I mean, look, I kind of get it, but the head being South Carolina and the body being North Carolina, look, there's a lot more to this one. And so you ask yourself, what is it all in the name of? Tell you what, folks, as I know,
show me the money!
It's all about the money. And so when you think about professional sports teams that don't play in their stadiums, yeah, we got that. But what does it require to build? Remember, we talked about the Giant Stadium. Public money for new stadiums. And it usually is hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer funds and subsidies. I mean, think about right here in Las Vegas, right? Approving $380 million for the A's and previously $750 million for the Raiders. Between 1970 and 2020, over $33 billion in public funds were used for stadiums in North America. Actually, it's just in U.S. and Canada, with taxpayers covering 73% of the cost. Well, why does it matter? Because everybody listening to this show, at some point in their lives, either A, have heard of a team that plays in another place that it's not from, or they live in that situation, or they've been through it as a taxpayer. Like me right here in Las Vegas, been through it with the Raiders and the Athletics. Now, we think about these stadiums. They cost a bunch of money. So what happens is the taxpayers carry the burden, and the taxpayers are horribly inconvenienced. So what about here in Vegas? You got an extra tax that goes on the hotel rooms, and then you've got resort fees and all this other garbage, which makes things more, or better yet, less affordable for the tourism, which Las Vegas certainly thrives upon. And Does it make it good for the tourist? Not necessarily. Does it make it good for the locals? Not necessarily. So who wins in this? The ownership wins because why? They're selling tickets. They're getting these enormous TV contracts. The players make money, but the locals have to pay more taxes. Things get more expensive here. We're inconvenienced even more and more. Think about the Formula One in Las Vegas, ! Which is one of the worst things that has happened to Las Vegas, in my opinion. But you think about all those extra costs. That's right. All those extra costs. And so we say there is enormous economic impact on these. And I'm going to say from a negative side, lots of controversy, lots of critics, and it's just a bad thing. Look, I'm an economist at the end of the day. With all my education and whatnot, I'm technically an economist. Vegas has paid over $1 billion in public money. Buffalo, $850 million. Tennessee, $500 million. And it goes on and on, folks. Back here with this discussion in a few minutes on the circus. Don't go anywhere.
Stop it!
I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free.
800-485-3125. 800-485-3125. 800-485-3125. That's 800-485-3125.
Are you or someone you love struggling with an addiction to drugs or alcohol and want to be set free from the chains of addiction? Then call Addiction Helpline America right now to get the help you need. From drug and alcohol addiction to dual diagnosis treatment, we provide a confidential helpline to help people like you get sober and live happy, substance-free lives.
Treatment helped me get my life back. I was so addicted, the only person I could focus on was myself and what I needed. I hit rock bottom and lost everything. Through treatment, I was able to overcome those demons and focus on my family again.
I used until I overdosed and almost died. That was the end of the road for me. After seeking treatment, I now have hope. I learned skills that help me deal with life on life's terms.
800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. That's 800-426-4994.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure you check out the store at thesportscircus.com. Lots of great items there: hats, hoodies, t-shirts, ball caps, beanie caps, sweatpants, coats, pillows, blankets, travel mugs, coffee mugs, mouse pads, you name it. They're all there with a clever Sports Circus logo on them. Made in America, of course. And, of course, everything that you pick up there, a very generous amount of the proceeds goes to the Gridiron Greats Assistance Fund to help those former NFL players that made the game great, to help them and help their families. All the pre-93 collective bargaining guys get their medical and dental and their family help, maybe transportation, whatnot. These are the players that had no big pensions. They made $10,000, $12,000 a year. They had a second job after the season. I got to tell you, folks, if you don't know anything about the Gridiron Greats Assistance Fund, that's Mike Ditka's group, and is actually headed up nowadays by Brian Urlacher. That's why Brian did the intro to this segment here. Got to tell you, folks, a great cause. Check out the Gridiron Greats Assistance Fund, and they are the benefactors of some of our proceeds, of course, from the Sports Circus, from the store, and also lots of other great events. And we handle these cigars with the Stars events for them as well. I tell you, really good organization, really good products from thesportscircus.com as well. Make sure you check them all out, folks. All right. Now back to this discussion of taxpayer money being squandered, in my opinion, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on stadiums for football, baseball, basketball, hockey. Of course, we used Vegas right here in my backyard as an example. There's an enormous economic impact, and it doesn't matter what location you think about, but let's go to something a little bit more present day. How about the Chicago Bears? Now, my home team, I grew up in Chicago, and I was born in Chicago. I grew up in Chicagoland, and I have to tell you, I look at what the Bears are doing in their situation, and I say, well, okay, people have asked me many times over, whether it's a call from Racing Randy or Mr. over in Kentucky or whatnot. Listen, everybody asks me this question. They say, well, how would you feel if the Bears moved out of Soldier Field? And I said, look, first of all, I don't have, as I clear up on purpose, I don't have a problem with the Bears moving out of Chicago in the first place. I mean, honestly, I think if they move to Arlington Heights, which is northwest of the city, down Interstate 90. It's actually closer to O'Hare for the travel to and from the team and opposing teams. So it makes travel a lot easier. They'll have more room in Arlington Heights, Illinois, which is the site of the Arlington Park Racetrack, Arlington International. So that's where they had the Arlington Million if you're a big race fan. And I've spent many a day at that racetrack, and it's a really convenient location. And it's convenient to the tollway, to Interstate 90, to 355, Route 53, the 190, actually not the 190, yeah, I guess the 190 as well, the 390. There's all kinds of highways and expressways and tollways and whatnot there. The point is, it's very accessible. Playing on the lakefront has its allure with the city backdrop 100%. And I think that's wonderful. The problem is the political structure in Chicago is a complete and utter disaster. And frankly, in the state of Illinois, I mean, listen, folks, there are no blue states. No, there are blue cities. When I say blue, I'm talking politics, which means use of tax dollars comes into play. And then you have an ongoing debate. Well, you're going to have to raise taxes for this, raise taxes for that, And it's a big disaster. And Illinois is arguably the most corrupt state out of all 50 states in the U.S. And so if you ask yourself, well, what's this mayor going to do? Well, he's likely going to run the team out of the city. I mean, look, the mayor already ran out the candy convention out of Chicago. Now it's held between Indianapolis and Las Vegas. It alternates every other year because the taxes were too high. They kept raising taxes. And finally, the convention says, just like other conventions, they're like, look, we've had enough. Let's go to Vegas. Because Vegas, they just keep building and building and building, and there's no state tax there. So the reality is the Bears, look, new stadium, yeah, at $900 million in taxpayer-backed infrastructure. That's where I'm going. That's for a Arlington Heights site, or essentially a $2 billion stadium, partially tax-funded, right? Domed stadium, et cetera, and so forth. And you have to ask yourself, a team that's valued about $9 billion, don't you think they could afford most of it, if not all of it, since they're the ones that are going to keep the rev? Well, this is all the question that a lot of people have. And they say, well, the Arlington Heights proposal, look, the Bears requested about $855 million to $900 million in public funding for infrastructure. Why would the public pay for that? The public is not the revenue benefactors. They say, well, we're going to create a bunch of jobs and we're going to drive local revenue to the local businesses. Yeah, that's true. But the reality is, the plan has faced enormous delays due to property tax disagreements. That's right. Now then you say, well, what about right there on Lake Michigan? So when you look at where Soldier Field stands today, the Bears propose a new publicly owned dome stadium on the lakefront, involving taxpayer funds and potential refinancing of existing debt. So you're going to recapitalize your debt. So that's basically what a Chapter 11 is, the recapitalization of debt. For a city that's financially already in trouble, essentially bankrupt, let's just go ahead and get a new stadium there for the football team. Let's just take another couple of $1 billion of taxpayer funds, and we'll try to make it up with what? Increased taxes, increased prices, and so forth. And they're going to create not a ghost town, but a ghost building, as I see it. And look, the public is not happy. In fact, the governor has really come under a lot of heat, not from this, but also from a lot of other stuff too. And this governor, as I see it, in my opinion, is arguably as bad as the California governor. Really not, in my opinion, just not good for either state. And this guy has a lot of money. And unfortunately, he just seems to not be able to identify with the taxpayer. And so you say, all right, well, what are the Bears going to do? Well, Indiana has introduced their legislation aimed at attracting the Bears right over the state line in Hammond, Indiana. Now, I know this area really, really well. I mean, hell, it's only 20 minutes away from Soldier Field. As the crow flies, it's, 10 miles? Something like that. It's actually, Hammond, Indiana is closer than Arlington Heights, which is suburban Chicago. And Hammond, Indiana, what do they have there? They have a better tax structure. They have plenty of land that's affordable, kind of like the East Rutherford, New Jersey. That's why we talked about the New York Football Giants. This is exactly where I was going with it. And you say, well, they could build a stadium cheaper down there, and they could drive redevelopment for economics there. And what do they have? Yes, they have casinos all over the place in Northwest Indiana. That's right. So it all kind of makes sense. And you say, well, wait a minute. That's a long way to go to O'Hare or to Midway Airport. Not so fast. The Bears could use the Gary International Airport, literally 10 minutes away, maybe even less, than the proposed site or one of the proposed sites for a new stadium on Lake Michigan, right over the line, just like the New York Football Giants and the New York Jets have. Same. Think about that. And let's face it, it would be cheaper. The state of Illinois would not have to fund it. The taxpayers in Illinois would not have to fund it. And all the people that are Bears fans will remain Bears fans. And the people in Northwest Indiana, they live in suburban Chicago. It's just over the state line in Lake County, Indiana, rather than Cook County, Illinois. It's literally right over an imaginary line that separates the two states. And the neighbor, you could be on one side of the street, you'll be in Indiana. The other side, you'll be in Illinois. And in fact, you'll be in Chicago, city limits, right? So you ask yourself, is it a bad situation? Not at all. In fact, the Bears ought to jump at the idea of moving to Northwest Indiana. I don't see any downside to this whatsoever for the people of Northern Illinois. And frankly, it's going to help redevelop the South Shore, which would bring a lot of revenue to the South Shore of Chicago. It would drive real estate pricing. It would drive home ownership. It would drive redevelopment and bring luster back to the far south side. And let's face it, that's not far from where Dick Butkus grew up and where he went to school at Chicago Vocational High School, right there off of the Chicago Skyway, the toll road that goes from Chicago right over the Indiana line to all the steel mills and so forth and so on. It is an absolute slam dunk, in my opinion. I don't see how in the world the Chicago Bears lose on that situation. I don't see how in the world the fans for the Chicago Bears lose in this deal. I only see winners in this. And the winners are the Bears fans, because ticket prices would level off. They wouldn't necessarily have this ridiculous price. Parking would likely be a little bit cheaper. Yeah, it would be a little further commute for those that live on the north side. But if you live on the west side, think about this. You don't have to go through downtown. You could take the 294 toll road, the Indiana toll road. It goes into the Indiana toll road. You could take Interstate 294, which is the Illinois toll road that goes right across and meets 8094 if you're in the far south suburbs. And it's a lot easier for the southern population in Chicagoland, greater Chicagoland. I mean, look, folks, there's almost 10 million people in Chicagoland in the first place. So you got to think about how many of those people live south of where Soldier Field is today. And you think of the distance for all those people that live south. What is the distance and the cost to go all the way up to Arlington Heights, which is northwest of the city? Doesn't make a lot of sense. More population, more dollars to be had if you go southeast than northwest. That's the reality of the Chicago Bears situation. So for all you people that keep asking me about it, because that's my hometown, yeah, I was born 2 miles away from Wrigley Field. And would they ever knock that place down? I would hope so. I'm not a fan of the Cubs. But my point is, Wrigley Field has its luster. It has its quirkiness. In the same way Fenway Park has its quirkiness and whatnot. But in the grand scheme of things, if the Bears are looking for a world-class stadium, they want to host a Super Bowl in a cold weather place. Frankly, I think the Super Bowl should be rotated between all stadiums, indoor and outdoor. And the Bears should have an outdoor stadium, in my opinion. That's part of the old Monsters of the Midway luster and playing in the cold. And that's why Lambeau Field does not have a dome on their stadium. And I love that. So honestly, folks, it would be in the best interest of the Bears to make the move to Northwest Indiana. And it would be in the best interest of Illinois State residents. And Indiana would be a big winner when it comes to redevelopment and revenue for Lake County and Northwest Indiana in general. That's my story for today, folks, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back in 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.